Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and you may have guessed by the messy mat, it's going to be my mixed media art journal thing today. Okay, this is the journal I made. The eagle-eyed of you will have noticed it did have corners on it. I was testing the corners out to see if I liked them, and I didn't, so I took them back off. From the build you'll see that I did actually finish up the inside of the covers, front and back. I thought this way it just gives me a bit more interest. Some of the pages I did have washi on, and I decided to take the washi back off, and then I'll put the washi in if I choose on whatever page I want. So I think we just need to get this puppy started, right? I wouldn't normally start on the very first page, but I think I'm going to start on the very first page. And I don't know why, other than I'm like, okay, new project, new journal, let's just do it. I'll jump around after that, because I find that if I jump around and do pages randomly within the journal, it puts less stress on the beginning of the spine. So I'm going to put a couple of these mats under here just to, I wouldn't say save my work surface, but save anything splashing around, moving around. Right. First things first, I want to cover this in some gesso, purely because I want to knock back a lot of that text. I also want to go in here and give it a bit of protection. Now, I could come in with a brayer, I could come in with a paintbrush, I could do several things. And in future ones, you may see me do any and all of the above or none of the above. But for me, I just want to knock this back a bit. So I think that's kind of okay. So just do that. So you're seeing I'm using a scraper to do this. I don't know why I've just taken up to using a scraper a lot of the time when I do this sort of stuff. I just kind of enjoy it. I use my fingers sometimes. I get in there and do anything I wish. So I'm just going to take this off. And I think that's probably a really good mantra for an art journal, is do what you want to do with it. It's your art, your way, and I'm sure you've heard me say that one before. Okay, I'm going to stop this video for a second for you, probably about 2 or 3 minutes for me, and then I'm going to just dry this off, and then I'm going to start. I do not mind that it bubbles. I don't mind that it comes up or ripples, because this is going to have texture upon texture upon texture upon it anyway. So I'm going to, as you saw, I've got this here. I've got that there, and I'm going to be using matte medium by Liquitex, the basics acrylics. I'm using that to stick stuff on and brush and smooth over the top of it as well. This can be used as glue, and I would say varnish, but varnish in, it's a sealant as well. And I learnt about this from a very talented New Zealand artist. I always get this wrong. I think it's Froyle Art, F-O-Y-L-E Art on YouTube. I will link her channel in the description box. When you're looking at this, down in that corner there's a little grey V. If you click on that V, you're going to find that it'll drop down, and any information I link to will be put in there. Go and check her out. She does some fabulous work with jelly plates. She's a contemporary, I would say pretty much an abstract artist. Lovely personality, great bubbly, and I enjoy watching her. So there you go, that's someone to go and look at. Okay, so what are we doing here? So first of all, I want to put down stuff. Now, I've got this bit of tissue paper. It's a gift wrap tissue paper, and all I'm going to do is I want to put some text on here that wasn't typewriter text. So I'm just going to tear the edges off here. This is gift wrap. So basically, you find this in like your party store, or I think I found this in the supermarket, or what you might call the grocery store for you. Depends on yourself, what shops you have in your area. You might even find this in the place you buy your local cards, you know, birthday cards, greetings cards, things like that. I'm just going to put a random amount on here. I usually work in odd numbers, so don't be surprised if the things I put on here are in 3s or 7s or something like that. Any bits I tear off I can always use for something else. So I'm just going to put this on. I'm quite liberal with my matte medium when I come to put stuff on a page, and I think that that's just me and me being overly cautious, to be honest with you. I want to make sure that the stuff I put down stays down. So, and this will eventually get covered up to a certain degree anyway, because there'll be other stuff going over the top of it. I feel like I've got a bit of an air bubble in there. Maybe it's the texture of the paint underneath. So, yep, gonna come in, just give it a bit of a coating. Once again, the coating is there just to seal it from any moisture that's going to be added to it. I've got a couple of bubbles there, but that's actually in the coating underneath. Doesn't bother me. So I want to put this a little bit down here. Now, if this was just a regular art journal, of course, I wouldn't have any printing on the page, because it would just be blank pages. But as I'm using, how do I say this, an upcycled book, we all saw the video where I created it, and if you didn't, actually that might be one I put in the description box as well. If you haven't seen how I built this in the first place, that might be a good one to watch, just in case you wish to do it yourself. So I don't always create my art journals from books. I must admit, there's an artist out there called Diane Reevely, and she has a range of art journals that she manufactures. They're in white, they come in black, they're square, they're rectangular, there's A5, there's A3, there's several different sizes, and I really like her art journals, and I very often will use her art journals. But I wanted, on this project alone, to make sure we had a complete journey together. Right, I fancy... Now, do I mind it? I don't mind it on the side, so that can go in there. I'm trying not to put stuff right down into that spine, and the reason for that is the more you load the spine, the more likely your pages are eventually going to break your spine apart. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that I don't inadvertently overload the spine, because if I overload the spine, then I've got to start trying to work out how to repair the book, or knowing my nature, I'll just go, okay, I'll give up and I'll move on to another one. So yeah, sorry to say, that's kind of my nature. If something isn't perfect, I tend to get rid of it and then start again, and that's where part of my problem with being a perfectionist comes in. And it's not healthy, and I know it's not healthy, but when it's something you were born with and it's in your nature, I find it incredibly hard to change. So let's just hope we don't end up with this breaking. I've left a little bit over the edge there. Doesn't bother me. I will go in and clear up the edges later. Right, we've got a bit here. Let's just put it right in the middle of there. So now, if there's one thing I would say about mixed media work or anything along those lines, it is always about the layers. The interest is created by the layers that you build, and that's what we're doing. I also have some of these tissue butterflies, and I want some of these in there because I want this to be a subtle background thing. Just as something in the background that if you look into the piece of art, you will end up finding. I think that's why I like collage, is because collage can be viewed on very many different levels. You can look at it and go, oh, that's pretty. But then you can really look at it and go, wow, I didn't see that there and I didn't see that there. And then before you know it, you're discovering a whole nother story the artist has created within. Come on, why can't I lift you up? There you go. The artist has created a whole nother world within their piece for you to discover. And I find that fascinating. I think that's absolutely marvellous. Now, if any of this doesn't stick down and it ripples, I don't mind. Because you know what? It's just adding to the texture. And as you can see, I am putting a coating over the top so that when I start running inks or stuff over this, I'm not having the danger of it maybe just buckling up on me. That's quite a big piece, but I don't mind that. The danger of trying to avoid doing stuff to the middle is that you then do nothing to the middle. And if you do nothing to the middle, you'll find that with your piece of art, you'll eventually have a gap in the middle where you're like, ooh, that needs something. So just be aware, you are avoiding it, but you're not avoiding it, if that all makes sense. It doesn't make much sense to me, but I know what I mean. And hopefully you do too. So make sure I get it under all of those edges. Right, let's just get that little bit there. Doesn't look like it's down. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this video. I mean, that's the reason I've started doing them, is because I asked you guys whether you wanted to see them, and the answer came back a resounding, oh yes please, let's do some. As you've already heard me say, I can't say I'm 100% comfortable doing them because I don't regard myself as an expert or anything in the field of mixed media. Although I do it, but I do it to my own satisfaction, and I think, I mean, it's good enough. It's good enough. I just sometimes don't feel it's good enough. Does that make sense to anyone whatsoever, what I've just said? That feels like it's too big of a piece. So just adding on and adding on. Just building up those visual layers so there's something in the background. Now, we may find as I go along that I cover up existing stuff, or maybe I put white gesso on, which I do tend to put white gesso or white acrylic on occasionally, and some of these pieces completely disappear and never get seen again. But it is all about the layers. It's always about the layers. And I have had people in the past say, well, why do you put it on if it's never going to be seen? I don't know that it's never going to be seen. I put it on because it feels right to put it on at the time I'm putting it on. I will probably use that Fleurs de Jardin, or Flowers in the Garden, or Flowers of the Garden. My French isn't that good. And there will be butterflies on here. So I am going to do a little bit of a hit with a hairdryer now, just to dry this off a tad so I can keep building. So bear with me, I'll be back with you in a sec. Okay, that literally was about 1 minute because the matte gel medium does actually dry quite quickly, or at least skins quite quickly. Before I go to my next stage, I do want to pull out some, whatever this stuff's called. I've gone completely blank. Sewing pattern. Now, there is a video, and again, if I can remember, I will link the video, where I stamp on pattern paper, and I quite like the fact there's butterflies on this, so I'm going to use some of that. I like using sewing pattern. I think a lot of it is because I like the fact that there's nice numbers involved in sewing patterns, and there's lines and stuff like that. I quite like it, so I'm just going to take the odd piece of this. Now, I don't want to overload this background with elements before I start to build the actual piece of art, but there are a few things I want to put on here. I am going to then go in and knock it back with a bit of acrylic or white gesso just to take it back a bit. So let's see, I like that bit, not necessarily there. Let's take this bit out of here, because I do quite like the idea of the butterflies. There's going to be butterflies in the eventual piece anyway. Let's see, let's take that one out of there. I think I can bring that all the way across, come through there. And I don't mind a printed black line. So, and then any bits I don't use will just go straight back in that bag. whenever it comes to scraps or sewing patterns, so I always keep them in these big Ziploc bags. I just find it's easier to corral them into one place. So where am I? Right. Okay, there's the odd straight line on here, but that doesn't bother me. Right, I'm wondering where I want this to be. Quite like that up there. Maybe that works for me. So I'm just going to get these put down again with the matte medium, because every time I put matte medium on here, I'm giving this page one more layer of protection. Now hopefully that's right. It's a bit tricky sometimes looking through an iPad to create, and that's exactly what I'm doing because that's what I'm filming on. I don't like the way that I folded that over. Oh, I got it unfolded. That's very unusual. So give that a good smushing down with more matte medium, because obviously sewing pattern is tissue paper of a kind and it is very water absorbent. So as you can see, I'm just building and building, guys, and you're probably going, oh, that's looking very, very busy. But my next stage is going to be, yeah, I do need that line to be horizontal or it will drive me nuts. My next stage is going to be putting, once I drive this off, of course, is going to be to put some white gesso on here to once again knock things into the background. Now I could obviously have stamped directly on here, but I didn't. So it's just another way of doing it. I'm thinking this looks too wide for me. I think I want to take this bit off. Hopefully everything I'm doing is in screen. It looks like it's in screen through my iPad, but you never really know. I struggle slightly because what I can see on screen, I know that you can see a couple of inches either way more than I can. I'm due to buy a new iPad. I think I'm due to buy it tomorrow. Depends on what the weather and the restrictions here in Wales are on shopping and things like that. So hopefully, I'm hoping to be able to do it anyway. I'm desperately in need of buying a new iPad. This one is so old. Oh my gosh, it's got to be at least 6 or 7 years old, this iPad. It feels like it was before the iPad was actually invented. That's how old this feels. There's not an air bubble under there, is it? Let me just pull the scraper across here. No, the air bubble is in the page underneath. Okay, so that's used up the last little bit of that, which is good. So I'm going to make sure that's glued down because that looks like it's coming up. I'm going to put my brush in water. Water, protect your brushes. You ignore your brushes and your bank account's going to deplete really quickly. I'm going to stop the camera now and give this a really good dry. Come back in with some more acrylic. Well, it is acrylic, I suppose. It says it's white acrylic gesso. Just to, again, put some of this white on, just knocking things into the background. I don't really know where I got the idea of painting with a plastic scraper from. I'm bound to have seen it somewhere. I know it can't possibly be my idea. I don't know, for me, I do use brushes, obviously I use brushes. I've got a whole container of brushes right over there. But when it comes to this sort of stuff, which isn't detailed, I very often just reach for one of these, and I find it's quite liberating because I don't really control it. I just put it on here. And as you can see, it's blending everything into, it sort of gives everything the one playing field. It blends it out. So I don't want things like this script here to become a dominant feature, but I do want it to be visual interest in the back of this whole design. That's bothering me, that it's actually still looks a bit like a picture to me, so I'm going to put a little bit extra on there just to try and knock that back even further. Now, if you ever get to the point, if you're doing this and you've put too much on, you can always use a baby wipe or a wet one and lift it back off again. But if you're going to lift off something you've put down onto tissue, I would say make sure you do it with almost a dabbing motion. Don't go in there and start rubbing, because what you're going to do is just going to lift everything off and you're going to destroy all of your lovely artwork. So I think that's okay. So I'm going to give this a clean. Now I need to consider what my next moves are. So while this is drying, let's have a little talk about my thought process, just so we can see whether it'll work. Now, I do know I want these bits of rice paper on there. I do not want to do that, however. That would just be insane, just to stick those on there. But I think I might take pieces out of it and try to build around that. I mean, I could actually do some of the bits up the side as well. So I think when it comes to that, I'm going to be taking these to pieces and doing that. I was considering putting a piece of this napkin in, but I think at the end of the day it's only going to be this section here. So to stop me reaching for it, I'm going to tear this piece out now. I like to use words or sayings or phrases in my artwork. It's kind of me wanting to give it a meaning or a purpose, and I like to think that, yes, creating is about the journey. Fully understand that one. But also for me, I have to have a purpose to what I'm doing. I can't just do it with no end result in mind. And obviously the end result is a beautiful piece of art. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. But I like there to be a purpose. Like when I create, if there's something on the page, there for me needs to be a reason why that's on the page. Even if I think it creates balance, then that's the reason it's on the page. I can't just stick things down. My brain doesn't do that. I have to have order, or I have to have balance, or there needs to be a reason. So there you go. That's just me having an out-of-body experience. So, right, I'm going to pause the video because I want to dry this off, because we're now going to go in and add some of these pieces of rice paper and napkin, and I need to do that onto a dry surface. So let's start thinking about this. Now, I like this, but I don't want all of it. I also don't want it to just look like I've stuck a field of things along the bottom, because that's not what this is. I will keep this though, because that's a visual texture for some other project. I quite like this bit here, and I quite like that in the right hand corner. I think it's because that's quite a dominant colour, and I quite like it, and I think it's going to go quite nicely by there. It sort of stops the eye leaving the page. I'm also thinking, that sounds like Biscuit having a go at the postman again. I'm also thinking that I want to take some of these pieces out and actually put them around the page. Now, any bits that are stuck over the edges or sticking out, once this is fully dried, I will obviously come in and I will deal with it in so much as I'll trim off the stuff when it's dried. So I like using rice paper, but I like using rice paper as almost ingredients for what I'm creating. I don't necessarily like to buy a bit of rice paper and go bang, stick it down, because that's not overly creative in my book. Oh, I was going to take this bit off, wasn't I? So, and as I said, I'm not going to use the whole of this piece of rice paper, just elements from it. I want a feel of the outside world, but it doesn't have to be the outside world. Right. Quite like this bit here in the middle. And I think if I'm quite sneaky, I can actually tear it so that there's no repetition of that bit. I also don't want it to look as if I've just stuck bits on willy-nilly and they're just anywhere. So, see, it's tempting to add that bit to it, but if I add that bit, it's going to look like a duplicate of the others. But if I do something like that, it's going to look like a different piece. And if I do something like that, it will look like a different piece. So if I take that off there, try and tear that darker bit out of the top, so it just looks like blue foliage. I can add that bit in, that will blend in. And all I've got left is this. I'm not really sure that there's any bits in here. I suppose I could take that bit out of there, just to take it up the page slightly. I think if I put that on an angle close to that one, it'd look like an extension of that one. Right, so these bits go to the basket and they'll get used on another day. So we're going to come back in with our collage medium. Now, rice paper isn't like tissue paper. It's a bit more resistant, and I'm happy that it's a bit more resistant, to be honest. Let's get another paintbrush, because my other paintbrush is actually in a bucket of water at the moment. So let's come in and add some of this down here. So, oh, don't attach yourself to that, Griffiths. So I'm hoping that I've got other people watching that do mixed media, or do art journaling, should I say. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but as I keep saying out loud, because I want to make sure that you fully understand, I'm no expert at this. I'm just a guy who does this. I'm more than willing to try anything. If there's something I am brave enough about, it's a case of I'll have a go at almost anything, to be honest with you. And I also feel that you can't be an expert at everything, but you don't know what you're good at unless you've actually had a go at it. So let's just stick this bit on here, because I like the idea that that could be an extension of stuff that was already growing there. That looks wrong because it's not attached to anything. Let's move that down to there. I'm just going to put that in. I know that leaf is repeating, but you know what? There is only so much I can do. Right, let's put this blue in down here, because I really like that blue leaf. And it will sit quite nicely. If I put that there, it looks like that leaf's going underneath the other leaf. The joy of rice paper is it tends to almost dissolve into its surroundings. So make sure that that's glued under there. And as I said, I will trim everything off once we've got to the point where it's in place. Right. I think if I stick this piece down first, I can then put the other piece overlapping it, and it'll look a lot more natural. Yeah, it's a bit of a trick. If you're going to use the same bits of napkin, or as I'm using here, rice paper in your work, try it at different angles, and it sort of disguises the repetition of pattern if it's the same pattern across everything, because that can be a problem when it comes to doing stuff like this. Right, where's the other bit gone? Right. If I do that, that bit joins onto there. That's quite nice. As I put it in by there. Now there's going to come a point when I start using modelling paste and stencils on here that I will have to leave this overnight to dry, because when you use some modelling pastes, and I'm not about to take the risk, if you hit them with a heat gun or you use a hairdryer on them, sometimes they'll just bubble up on you. That's not what I want. So I'm going to be a bit cautious, and I don't want that up there. I don't want that up there. And I'm going to leave it overnight, which is what I would normally do anyway. I normally leave things overnight to fully dry before I go in, because things like, if I'm going to be using a marker or a permanent pen or a gel pen, I can't use that on wet paint. It'll just destroy my pen. However, if everything is left to dry, I can use it the following day and it won't be a problem, or it won't be an issue anyway. I need a bit more of that medium. I do like the creaminess of this matte gel medium, and I like the fact that it doesn't take forever to dry, which is also a real big benefit. That works lovely. Right, if I come in over here, so now it is my intention when I do the pages in this journal that it's not always going to be the same things I do week in, week out, because that would be absolutely boring for both of us. I'm probably going to use similar techniques because there are only so many techniques I know or can actually use. But I'm hoping to vary the colour palette, vary the finished look. I'm willing to try stuff out in this journal. I do have other art journals I work in, so this one is going to be kept specifically. Why does that feel like it's going to lift up? Bear with me, I need to lift that up myself. I'll put some more under there. So I do have other art journals I work in as well, so this one will be kept specifically for this period, this playlist. Right, I'm kind of liking that. That's sort of giving me something. I do feel something could come in down there though, and I'm a little bit. The only bit I've got is very repetitious of that bit, but I'm wondering whether I can get away with something like. I think I can get away with something like that. Just so I've got something crossing that divide. This looks like a bit of a hole in the design to me, and that's my fault and no one else's. However, if I do something like that, make sure there's stuff underneath there. There you go. That sort of moved that across the divide for me. Make sure I push that down into there. Right, what else needs to go on this page before everything needs to dry? So let's have a think. So we've done with the flowers, we've done with the sewing pattern backgrounds. I do have butterflies I want to put on that are napkin, and I do have the words that I want to put on that's also napkin, and I'm wondering whether it's time to try and get that on this page. So I'm going to carefully tear around this to the point where I've eliminated the majority of colour from it that isn't needed, if that makes sense. Like this pink bit, if I had that on there, it would just look very, very bizarre. Now, there are ways of tearing napkins. That you can use a water brush, you could use just a wet paintbrush. I tend to just tear them, to be honest. I hold my thumbs together and almost pull them apart as I go. It's not foolproof, I know that, but it works for me. And I think that's one of the things that you can embrace as an artist. Everything you buy comes with a set of instructions. And that's because the manufacturers are honour bound to actually give you instruction. However, the first thing I do is get rid of the instructions. I'm taking off the plies here. Plies being the layers of t-shirts. One, all I'm doing is just wetting my fingers, giving it a pinch, and it should pull apart. Please pull apart. There you go, it pulls apart. Because all I need is this one section. I'm going to hang on to that and I'll show you why in a moment. So that's all I need, and it'll be a really subtle bit of wording there. It might disappear in the final picture, but at least I've got it. So yes, I normally ignore the instructions. I'm going to use a bit of cling wrap or plastic wrap, and you'll see why in a moment. And I do that because I like to experiment. I like to see what actually something can do. And I've made some horrendous mistakes, and I've messed things up, and I've ruined stuff, and I've stuck things to other things and I've been able to get them off again. But you know what? I had fun doing it. So let's just put that there. So I hope that's straight. It's very hard looking through an iPad trying to work out whether something's straight. Okay, I just tapped that down. Now this is why I pulled out the plastic wrap, because this is how I like to do napkins. And I'm going to use the bits that I took off, and I'm just going to burnish that down. And what that will do is it will flatten it all the way down to that surface, so it gives me a chance of getting rid of all the air bubbles. Now if I was to do this directly on to the napkin would be torn to shreds. But this way it works best. Don't know again where I saw this first done, but I've done this for a couple of years now and I love it. When you peel this off, you may have noticed I didn't put matte medium over the top of the napkin. I'll do that afterwards. But I'm going to peel this back almost so it's level with itself, and it should just pull straight away without damaging the napkin. This bit, if it's dirty, just throw it away. Plastic wrap's really inexpensive. And then I'll come in and I will just give this a good coating of the matte medium, just so that it's sealed off for any liquids I'm going to put over the top, and there are definitely going to be liquids put over the top. Right, that's sealed down. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. I have no idea what the time is, however. Right, I do want to put a couple of butterflies in here. I always love using this napkin, and I like these in pairs. But then I like 3 butterflies on a page. So I'm going to pull in these 2, I think, and then use this on there as well. So I'm just going to come in and tear this once again. Same process. This was just a napkin I got in a grocery store. I bought a bundle of them, so I've been using them for a long time now. These have gone a long way. I use them a lot on many projects. And I would say if you do ever see a pack of napkins, you go, ooh, those are useful, just grab them. Whatever you think, just seriously, napkins are not that expensive. Just grab them because you won't regret it. You never know. If you've got someone else who's an artist as well, I very often swap napkins with people. So I've got a friend who does bottle art. Right, there's the thing, the 2 layers came off in one go. I've got a friend who does bottle art. Like she paints and decorates bottles and she uses napkins to do the decoration. So whenever she finds a new bundle of napkins, she gives me a couple, and whenever I find a new bundle of napkins, I give her a couple. So we kind of just swap them out, because the thing is, you get like 20 or 30 napkins in a bundle. That would last me the rest of my life. Absolutely the rest of my life. So let's just take that off. Is that the full one? Yeah, that is it. Okay, so I'm going to use the same process as before. I really am fancying this going into that gap there. So put that there. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful because I do know I want to be putting stenciling up in this area. But the stenciling will be white, so I'm not worried too much. But I do need to respect the fact that there may well be something there. So I'm just taking a bit of a risk by using a bit of plastic wrap I've already used, but I know that there's nothing really on it. So it just smooths it all down, takes away all the air bubbles. And sometimes you'll find napkin has texture. Like, I don't know if you see it, there's a bit of texture there along the edge where it's been finished off. When you use plastic wrap on it, that disappears. Right, I want that up there, and I do want that up there. I don't mind that it's over the flowers, because that wouldn't bother me, because butterflies would be flying over the top of flowers anyway. And like before, I will trim the edges when I need to trim the edges, when it's all dry. Come on, lay down flat. Just put that down. Let's grab my pieces of napkin and a clean area of that plastic wrap. I think you could probably do this same process with file pockets and things like that, and anything that's plastic. I just find that using plastic wrap or saran wrap or cling film, as we call it here in Britain, it's so readily available. I just always just use this. I'm having trouble getting this. I think it's because I've got a sticky bit. There you go. That's what I was looking to do. It was sticking for some reason. I think I was doing exactly what I told you not to do, which is I was trying to recycle the same piece over and over again. I don't know where that little thread came from. Okay, right, that's that on there. I need to just put a bit of matte medium over the top just to protect them. And this one, because I don't think I did that one. Okay, I've just got a little bit left on my brush, so I'm just going to use it up because I'd rather not waste matte medium. And unfortunately, the design of the bottle is that you can't get it back in again. So the squeezy tube, you can't get the lid off to get the matte medium back in the tube. So if you do use this stuff, make sure you're aware, squeeze a little often, and then you won't have a problem. So I'm going to leave that for a second. You're going to leave it for a second because I want to make sure this is completely dry. Now what I need to do is I need to blend some of these harsh edges away now, just to try and get all of this to one level playing field-ish. So I'm going to use some acrylic paint. I'm just using this, can be any acrylic paint you wish. I'm using this instead of a tube. I'm using the bottle stuff because it's more liquid. And what I want to do is I'm going to almost finger paint, and I'm going to blend some of these edges out. So by finger painting, I mean I'm just going to take that and I'm just going to work my way around and just merge it into the background almost. How's that looking? It's weird, it looks different through the camera than it does in real life. There's a little bit of lightness in there. I don't want that to look too dark. I'd quite like that to be. Sorry if I'm mumbling, it's because I'm thinking. Yes, I do think occasionally. Right, okay, loving that so far. Right, time to hit the pause button. I'm now going to come in. I'm going to completely dry this. I'm going to trim all the edges. I'm going to clean these papers back a bit. So we're at the point where this is touch dry again now. And what I need to do is I need to do the stenciling of the modelling paste. And this is a modelling paste I'm using now. You may ask, why am I actually waiting overnight for it to dry? I could use a heat tool, I could use a hairdryer or something. I don't like to do that because if I do that, what happens is sometimes the modelling paste bubbles, and that's so not what I want to happen. So I'm using just a palette knife, could be a plastic one, could be a metal one, whichever it is, and I want small patches on here of this stencil. So I'm not loading too much onto my palette knife. It doesn't take a lot. I'm just going to press down and then I'm going to swipe across a few times just to give myself the look I'm going for. And I don't mind if it's gone over the top of the butterfly, which it probably has. But see, that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to balance this across, so I want some of this down here now. And again, I'm going to load up a little bit more than that, I feel, on my palette knife. I can always put more, it's hard to take it off. So I'm going to come in again. Where do I want this to be? I want this to be about there actually. So I'm trying to continue that line across here. Not that there's any set way to do this or not do this. It just happens to be what I'm feeling at the moment. And I'd like to take this bubble effect down a bit. Now once I've finished stenciling, I'm probably going to go in and remove those little bits from there. I do want a little tiny bit along the top. I don't want much, I just want a little bit up here just to add some interest. Do excuse my arm if it's in the way of the lens, hopefully it's not. So just going to come across there, finish that one off. It's a little bit, again, I'll clean that up in a minute. And then I want one more patch down here, and I don't mind, it doesn't have to be a large amount, or do I? Yes, I do want some down here. I'm debating. The thing is, I've put 4 lots on here now, and as you heard me say earlier on, I like uneven numbers. I think it just aesthetically it works out better. So I'm going to put that there. And maybe I'll try and continue this a little bit across the middle. Just a tad. So I do this without destroying what I've already done. Just a little like that and lift that off. Right, I can take off the bits I don't want from there. Pop that stencil straight into water, which I'll do in a second. Now I'm just going to come in and I'm going to manicure. I'm calling it manicuring because I don't know what else to call it. Any bits that I don't want. So I think we're at the point now where I need to stop. As I said, this will be an overnight dry. I am looking at this, funnily enough, thinking I could do with a little bit of stamping in there as well. And I'm only talking a little bit of stamping, so it's dry enough to do that. Let's have a look and see what I've got text-wise that I could use to stamp with. I've got a few here. That's a Tim Holtz one. It might be a bit difficult to get that in there. I might use this one actually. Don't know which brand it is. When I get my stamps, I tend to cannibalize the packs. Only take out what I use, and then the rest I send to a charity shop, or I give them to a friend, or I put them somewhere where I'm not going to use them, because to be honest with you, if I'm not going to use them, I'm not going to hang on to them. Right, I like to make that as straight as I can. Not that I'm the best stamper in the world. Just want little bits here and there. Just adding a little bit of interest visually. And I know we worked really hard to remove a lot of the darkness of that, but I don't mind that. I mean, I'm quite happy with putting little bits in now because I get to choose where they go, and the joy of it is I can go across the middle divide. So therefore, I think that's it. Just do a little bit by there, just to finish off that edge, and maybe a touch down there. Oh, let's see, one more bit I'd quite like to... Okay, there you go. There's enough. It's hard sometimes because I just don't know when to stop. So, and I think a lot of us are like that. So I'm going to leave this here, and this is all dry. This has been an overnight dry. I do that so that the paste is fully dried and set. Everything on this page is dried. There were some bubbles and ripples as I was doing it, but they flattened back out. So I'm just going to come in with a bit of archival black and just put numbers in randomly. I don't tend to do groups of 3s or things like that when I do the numbers. I just put the numbers in where I think the numbers need to be. I'm just going to bring in the single one on. I don't know why I like numbers, I just do. So I just find they're a great little, they're a hidden bit of interest, and sometimes people go, oh, I wonder why that number's there, and see whether there's any significance in them. With me, there usually isn't. It's just I like to put a number in. So I'm going to put one in there as well. And I think I want one more pair of numbers. Some actually might just be there, to be honest. And just pop that in there. And I chose to do stamping of numbers near the spine and not actually put in numbers that are on bits of paper or tissue or something, because as always I'm trying not to bulk up that spine. Right, let's put those to one side. So I'm going to start up in this corner. Now first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to spritz it with some water. And then these have got handy little pipettes on them. If you don't have acrylic inks with these little eyedropper things, you can buy them on the internet, the little pipettes. I know that I used to buy mine, I will say from eBay. They come from China, obviously, and they take a while to get here, but you can get like a pack of 20 or 30. Right, and I'm just going to spritz that with water. And I want to see that doing a little bit of movement for me, because this will show up the texture and just give me a whole pile of interest. Now where it's coming down here, I don't really mind that normally, but I don't like the way that's run, so I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to let that sit. I wonder whether I'm going to do it in the other direction as well. See if there's any that will go to the top edge of the page, and see if I can run it along to the corner. It'll help me frame out the piece a little bit. There you go, I don't mind that. Now if I let that dry completely on its own, it will go paler in colour, but it will have a slightly more intense colour than if I blotted it off with kitchen towels. So that's why I'm sort of leaving it. I'm not wanting punch you in the face brightness, but I do want some brightness on there. We will see it. It'll become less as we go along. So right, I've got that. I want a little bit of the green down here. Now I have to play being really careful here, because I'm going to be putting pink and green on the same spread. Now that's equal to mixing green and red, which will make brown. So I do have to be a little bit careful. The thing I'm going to have to do probably is, once I've done the green and I'm happy with the green, I'm going to need to heat set it. And by heat set it, I just mean I'm going to dry up the hairdryer, and that means it's less likely to cause me a problem when I put the brown on. Right, I like that across there. I know there's going to be pink on here. I'd quite like there to be another patch of green somewhere, but I'm not overly concerned about it yet. I'm going to let myself sit and see where this goes. So something else I want to do is I'm going to put a little tiny touch of white into both of these areas as well, because that trust me, that will blend nicely with what's already on the page. And I'm only using little bits. I am really bad at squirting huge amounts of colour onto a page and then spending half my time trying to get the colour back off again. So I speak from experience here, people. So again, I've got the white on there. See, I quite like the way it does this sort of merging, gives me a couple of tones. Now, it could be in the finished spread. I don't see all of that colour anyway, but I don't mind having it on there. It creates an interest for me. Trying to be a little aware of what's happening up there while I'm doing down there. So I'm just going to tip that so it goes in the other direction. Right, I think we're at the point where I need to just dry this off just fractionally, just to take this back a bit, just so that it sets it a little bit. So I'm going to put you on pause just for a couple of seconds. So that's less than a minute's drying. All I've done is I've just dried it enough so that if I look at stuff, I don't see a shine which represents wetness on the page. So now I'm going to come in with the magenta. Now the magenta is a really powerful colour, but I do know that it dries back to a lighter shade. So I'm going to come in and just do that bit there and that bit there. And I'm not going to... Oh, my lid, I tightened it up far too tightly. Just going to put a little bit in there and just weave some pinks through there just so it'll disperse. There's going to be more pink on this page in other areas. I just want to get this. I love it when it does that. That is just magic to me. I love it when it all bleeds out in different directions, and this is where the liquids really help. Now you could be doing this, not keen on that bit though, you could be doing this with watered down acrylics, you could be doing this with watered down paints, you could do this with watercolours as well. There's lots of different mediums you can do these sort of techniques with. It doesn't have to be acrylic inks. So I just happen to like acrylic inks. So I'm just going to get that to run That's exciting. I love that. I'd like to quite like this one to go to the left a little bit. Okay, so we've got that on there. I'm quite happy with that. As I did before, I want to put a little bit of white into this, just so that I've got a little bit of distribution of light and shade, should we say. And I don't think I'm going to add water to this with the white on it. I quite like the intensity of the white, because if I water the white down, it's just going to make pale pink. Now, I think at the moment we're going to let that sit there. I've got more to do there, and I need to decide what I'm doing over here. I've got a feeling I might just do white in this corner. Haven't quite come up with the idea for that yet. So again, spritz the area, and I do that just so that it starts moving the moment I put the colour on here. It doesn't just soak straight in. Mind, it shouldn't soak straight in because of the amount of stuff I've got underneath it, protecting the other layers. Oh, that's magical. I love that. Absolutely love that. So it just goes slightly to one side. Just hoping that little bit there just moves. I mean, I could do that. There you go. That will give it. Right. Just want to make sure things are moving in the direction I want. I don't really want it in the spine. So let's see if I tip this up and move it down a bit. Right, I think that's good enough for me, for what I want. Let's take that out of there. And I want that to be stopped as well. I don't want as much going off to the left. Let's pop that under there so it stays level. And now I'll just get a little bit of white in on this page, just to let the white do its magic as well. I'm sure I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When you do stuff like this, you have no control. Well, you have very little control, and that's actually what I find insanely attractive about this, because it just does what it does, and I love that. Now, do I want white down there? I think I do, because I like the three pinks. I mean, if I put green there, it's going to look far too balanced. Oh, there you go, reedy bottle. So I wasn't planning on spraying white there, but I sprayed white ink instead of white water. But that's fine. I mean, I was going to put white there anyway, so we can't really complain about that, can we? So let's get that running a little bit. Happy accidents, that's what we call them, happy accidents. Right, there's quite a lot down there. That wouldn't be the normal amount that I put in there, but I needed to get that moving. And I quite like the fact that that looks even. I like the way that the dots actually stand out there now. So, right. Question is this enough? Do I need to actually... I think it is enough, to be honest. I think I want to dry this because, as I said before, it will dry lighter. And then we'll take a look and see where we want to go. So 1 second. This corner does bother me slightly. I didn't really want to put pink into it. Try to see what else I've got over here that might... Okay, guys, we're going rogue here. We're going against the plan that I had. So red oxide. I don't know that I've used this one before, to be honest. Because I feel it needs a pop of something there. It needs a pop of something there. And I wouldn't mind if I did a pop of something there that came across there. So let's do this section at a time and see how I feel about this. I haven't used this colour yet, so I'm not overly sure what it looks like. It could be the right colour. It could be the wrong colour. Who knows? So... Okay, I don't mind that. That's not offensive. I do want to take some of it off though, because I think it's a bit much. I don't mind that. That's just added a bit of almost vintage to it. Vintage, probably not the right word. Aging, that's probably the word I'm looking for. A little bit along there. I don't want a lot, I just want a hint. I don't want to make the green brown, because I do quite like the green. Get that running down a little bit. Once it's run down, make it run back again. I might make it run across. And down the edge of that page. It feels like some sort of game show, doesn't it, where I've got to move things around without touching it. It's a weird one. I think I might do a little bit more in there in a moment. At the moment, I'm not sure about that little bit. I did say I wanted some down there, but I don't want a lot down there. There's no texture there, so whatever is going to happen there is going to be pretty much just a run. I did say I wanted it to run across a bit, but I'm uncertain about that now. So hopefully you can see this. I'm trying my best to keep things in shot, but there is only so much I can do. If I've got that in there, I don't mind that. I'm not offended by that. Oh, I'm offended by the fact that that's deciding to move all over the place. Let's take some of that out of there. I don't mind it moving around, but I don't want it running all over the place out of control. Right, I do feel I need to put a little something more. Do I need to put a little something? I think that just needs a little tiny spritz more. It's as if it just needs a dot. So let's see if I can just do a little bit there. And pretty much not really do anything than letting it run. No, I think I need to add more water to that to make it run in the direction I want it to run in. I think that's kind of what I wanted. I just want to blot some of the colour off up here because I wanted it there, but I don't want it to look so intense. So I just want to soften out some of those hard edges. That's better. And although I said I like this, which I do, just want to... Okay, I think I'm done with the inks on here. I think that's pretty much kind of where I was going. I think I'd like to cover up those butterflies because I don't really want the speckles or the bits I put on going on the butterfly. I'm going to put that over there. Then I'm going to bring in this distress stain, which is why I bought it in the first place. And I'm going to do some speckles on here, because they tend to alter the character of the stuff I'm looking at. And also, as you'll see, especially down there, they sort of blend out to almost nothing. Okay, let's put the lid on that. That and that out the way. Now, where did I put that black paint? Right, so I'm using just black acrylic paint for my next bit. Also, what I'm doing is I've got some lids and caps and things like this. I tend to use stuff like this to actually put circles on. I mean, this is the top of a Pringles pot, you know, Pringles crisps, and it'll give me a nice circle if I want to. I'm wondering whether I need to dry this first. So right you are, we're all nicely dried off. Now I think I'm going to take these out because there's not really going to be much wet work going on in the future of this book. We're kind of there, and by doing that I can actually bring in my painty thingy, chopping boardy thingy. So I'm just going to take some of this black acrylic paint. Can be any any brand you wish. I'm going to put a bit of it down. Now, I'm not looking for perfect circles, but I am looking for circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm painting this in a circle without watering it down. And I'm going to push my lids into it. And then I'm going to come in and stamp circles. I don't mind if they're slightly rough looking. I don't care if they go off the page. They're just there to add a little more drama to the overall piece. And am I doing a set amount of them? Nope, I'm just doing what I feel. So that's that one done. Now I wanted to put a circle around there, and actually I am going to put a circle around there. So, I do use found objects, as I would call these, quite often in my mixed media work. So I like the fact that it's kind of recycling, or didn't intentionally put those above each other, but let's do one off there. My paint is drying out, which is probably a sign that I've done enough. But me being me, I'll just add more paint. So let's come back in with the other one, because I feel that this needs something to separate it from the other one. And by there. Okay, I think we're done with that. So yeah, using found objects, you pay for the packaging, why not keep the packaging? So let's just get that off my fingers, because otherwise I'm going to be touching things with black paint, and that's not my intention. So this is going to go to one side, because I do not want to put my fingers in that, and you've not seen me put my fingers in stuff. I do it all of the time. So we're at that point with this. I think I'm at the point now where I want to add the wording into this, and then I'll put a little bit of a barrier over the things I've put in that I want to keep speckle free, and then we'll just put some black splatters on here, and we're done. So let's pull this back in. These are the inscriptions I'm going to use. Let's pull in another one of those chopping boards. I love these chopping boards. If I told you I picked these up in like $1 or £1 store, I think there's either 3 or 4 of them come in a kit, and I think that's pretty good going for £1. So where's that thing? I've got that. Let's get a brush full of paint. So we're back to the matte medium now. What I did last night too is I did put a coating of matte medium over the top of these, so that I wasn't going to have any other problems with them. Not that I expected any problems, but I just like to make sure that they're not going to ripple too badly. And that fits in beautifully up there, which is where I want it. Sorry if you can hear any banging downstairs. We've still got the decorators in, as I have for a while. And he's deciding today, instead of painting walls, he's going to make noise. So, hey ho. That is what it is. Right, that's nicely in there. I don't mind if I pick up a bit of the pink on my brush and it goes over the top of this and it brings that colour through. Doesn't bother me. I haven't done it intentionally, but that's that one in place. Okay, I do need a little bit more. Yeah, I'm being cautious now with how much I squeeze out of this tube, because, as I said previously, you can't get it back in the tube, which I think is a bit of a downfall. I like to put my stuff on, and if I've put out too much, I like to put it back in the container. Well, obviously that's not always going to happen with this, is it? So let's just, ooh, is that black on there? Actually, I don't mind the black on there, that's fine. I just suddenly realised I'm sitting this on top of black acrylic paint. Does that bother me? It does bother me. I have to take that off. Right, I think I've got the same saying in a different colour, so bear with me. I just need to find it in my tin. See, that's what happens when you're not concentrating. So it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. You don't have to be perfect to be beautiful. There you go, there's another version of it. Actually, this was the one, wasn't it? You'll get through the storm. Let's put that one on there then. Right, sorry about that. That was just me being a complete numpty and forgetting that I'd done that. I'm going to give this a little bit of distress on the edges, just to frame it out a bit. And I do know that vintage photo distressing is actually water soluble, so when I actually put it on the page with the medium, you never know, the vintageness may move around a bit. So let's put that where I wanted it, which is by there. Is that straight? I think that's straight. And I will really carefully go over the top of this because I don't want to pick up any of the acrylic paint that's around it. I should really have dried it off, but I'm beginning to think you've probably seen me or had enough time of waiting for me to dry things off, and I didn't want to do that. Now, does this bother me? It does ever so slightly. I'm not lying to you here. It does bother me slightly, but I'm not really sure how I can tidy that up. And I think if I did try and tidy it up, what would happen is I'd probably end up with more of a problem than I started with. So sometimes you've just got to let it be, or let it go, as the saying goes. And what was it? So I'm back again. That's dried as much as I can get. It's touch dry there. Now I'm going to try and do something I normally do, but I normally wait until the whole thing is dry, and that is I'm going to draw. I want to do some like rough lines around this and this. It may not work, because if this is too wet, this is not going to work, and if it doesn't work, you'll see it in the final photograph anyway. So I'm just going to come in, and I don't know why I like doing this, but I like to just put some lines on here just to emphasize it, just to frame it out, as I've said with the other stuff. I'm not trying to be perfect in my lines. If anything, I'm trying to be imperfect with my lines. But you see what I mean? It just gives it that hand-drawn, should we say. I'm going to come in and do the same along here. This feels a bit wetter up here, so I'm not sure. Normally, I wouldn't advise trying to draw on any wet paint, because what it'll do is nothing. It'll just destroy your pen, which is probably doing to this pen as I speak. I think that'll do. It's not as perfect as I'd have liked it, but you know what? I'm okay with not perfect. I'm trying to be embracing of that feeling, should we say. Okay, so on to the splatters that will just finish it off. Now, a lot of the time I do find doing splatters on a page is the final touch. It just brings it all into being. But what I need to do is I need to protect bits I need to protect. So I'm going to put that over the actual inscription. I call it an inscription. That's probably because I'm a cake person as well. So for me, when there's wording on something, it's an inscription. Lay that one across there. I'd quite like to protect that butterfly as well. I'm not concerned about those butterflies. Not that they're any less important than the other butterflies, but I don't know. I don't feel that one needs protecting. I want to protect this, but I don't want to protect it completely. I want to make sure that the main part of the butterfly is protected, but I don't mind splatters arriving around it. There you go. That will just give me enough protection there. So as I was doing, I've got a fan brush. I'm going to put some black acrylic on here. You could do this with ink, and a lot of the times I will do it with ink, but I find that I like the intensity that I get when I actually do this with acrylics. So I'm going to come in with a bit of water so that it's fluid. So, see what I mean? So I'm going to load my brush, and then I'm just going to tap it on my finger. Half the time I end up with this all over my trousers. I've even had it on the curtains before now, because I've been very vigorous in my tapping. A little bit down in the middle. I think that's it. Right, let me just... See, I'm wearing it. I'm always wearing it. Scary, scary, scary. Let's just lift these up. Let's lift them up with something so I don't squish anything with my fingers. So I think we're done, guys. You'll see a photograph of it. Obviously, it's a thumbnail. And if you want another photograph of it, I'm more than likely to put it into my Pinterest account. So if you look up Ceri on Pinterest, you'll find it. So, and speaking of links, there you go. Go to Ceri Griffiths on Pinterest. You'll find all of my artwork, all of my boards of things that I collect as inspiration along the way. This is where you can find me. This is where you have found me. And until next time, I'm really looking forward to keeping this series going. It was interesting, as I said, bearing my soul creatively online and working as we go along. A little tricky, but hopefully you enjoyed it. So I'm Ceri the Crafter, that's Ceri the Crafter. I'm saying goodbye for the moment. Bye-bye now.